I'll start. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Allison Molt, an Angie board member. Also with me today from Angie is Beth Stolting, an Angie Director of Operations and Development. We are excited that you are here with us for today's workshop, Teaching Human Ecology with Models and Simulations as part of Angie's 37th Annual Winter Conference. A special thank you to our conference sponsors, PSE&G, New Jersey Natural Gas, and our anonymous donor who is a friend of science and environmental education in New Jersey, and to BASF and Grounds for Sculpture for supporting our field experiences. Also, we are placing the link to our YouTube channel in the chat room where you can see all of our recorded content from past conferences, forums, and other sponsored events. We hope you'll subscribe to Angie's YouTube channel. Just a few reminders for this session. We ask that everyone please keep themselves on mute throughout the presentation. If you do have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat room. There will be time for live questions towards the end of the presentation in which you can either raise your hand or use the hand raising icon and we will let you ask your questions. Nancy Sardone from Georgian Court University is our presenter today to introduce students to human ecology concepts with inquiry-based simulations, role-playing, and modeling activities that explore global land use and water use, population changes, changes to wildlife habitats, and interdependent relationships in ecosystems. You will receive lesson plans matched to state standards for several disciplines. Nancy, please introduce yourself now and let's get started.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get going. So hopefully you can see that beautiful fields of green on this kind of dreary, I don't know, it was snowing. It's snowing where Allison is, wherever that may be, but nonetheless. So today we're going to talk about educating for sustainable communities. I'm presenting on behalf of Population Education. So let me just get going here. Okay, so Population Education was founded in 1975 when the population was 4 billion. We're now close to 8 billion, right? Imagine that. So 1975, we doubled the world population. And so that's the emphasis of this particular organization. It's about bringing awareness through teaching materials. And if anyone is interested in being a volunteer population connection trainer like myself, let me know, we'll sign you up. So let's get started. Population topics include both environmental and societal topics, resource use, habitat, ecosystems, agriculture, to name a few in the environmental genre, and in societal, of course, human rights, public health, urbanization. Okay. So today what we're going to talk about is exactly what Allison just mentioned in terms of the description of the session, some extra strategies, demonstration, discussion, research, inquiry-based simulation, modeling. And then I have 3 lesson plans that I'm going to show you today in terms of videos, and we could talk about it a little bit. But I wanted to let you know that there are, I think, 80 different lesson plans that if you sign up by filling out a form with a couple of boxes in it, it's not too involved. You get lifetime access to these 80 lesson plans that are frequently added to. So I'll explain that in a second. So the lesson plans are Earth, the apple of our eye, World of Difference, and then Pop Ecology. So here's the middle school curriculum access. If you would, if you're interested in getting these materials, there's the website is learn.populationeducation.org, PP22S. Maybe somebody could write that, Allison or Beth, if you could add that to the chat, that would be really helpful. Learn.populationeducation.org, the one that's in yellow there. So it's including more than 41 lesson plans, as I just mentioned, but it has lots of videos too. And I think that in this mode that we're in, are we in person? Are we online? Do we have this, hybrid model? I think the videos can really come in handy. So that's what I'm going to share today as well. So this is out of the grouping of lesson plans called People and the Planet, Lessons for a Sustainable Future. It is at the middle school level, but there are today anyway, but there are many options to bring the lesson up a level, bring the lesson down a level. So the first is lesson 1, Earth, the apple of our eye. So it's a demonstration of the limited farmland that we have available on this planet Earth that we share, and an exploration of ways to protect soil health. So if you go to populationeducation.org, I think it's a smaller form if you want to take this road. There are many roads to the same place, in other words, many roads. And if you take a minute, populationeducation.org, and put in the keywords Earth, the apple, the lesson plan that I'm going to review with you today is there. It's also at a elementary level. The science connections are science and engineering practices, developing and using models, analyzing and interpreting data. And it's the ESS3 disciplinary core ideas, Earth and human activity. And of course, bringing awareness to our students that humans are so powerful when it comes to the environment, toward good and toward bad. And so that's the notion of this particular, that's the message really of this, this particular lesson. Okay, and then cross-cutting concepts are scale, proportion, and quantity. So this is what the lesson plan, just in case you are going, if you did go ahead and download the lesson plan, this is what it should look like. It's, you could talk about carrying capacity, habitable land, agricultural land, and about the nutrients in the soil. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share a video. Each of these videos are roughly 5 minutes long. So I'm going to stop sharing here and move over to the video. So one more chance if you want to follow along, populationeducation.org, keywords, Earth, the apple. All right, so let me head to my videos. All right. And so Beth or Allison, if you could just give me a thumbs up if you can hear this and if you could see. So the lesson is apple, the video, sorry, is apple. Great, thank you.
My name's Amanda, and this is Earth, the apple of our eye. This activity is recommended for middle school and high school students and covers content areas such as environmental science, earth science, math, and social studies. This is a demonstration which will show students how much of our total land mass is available for use for farming. To start, you'll need 2 apples, a cutting board or a paper towel, and a knife. You'll hold the apple up and tell students that this represents our Earth. Then ask them how much of our Earth you think is land and how much of our Earth you think is water. Cut the apple into 4 pieces. Hold up 3/4. This represents the amount of water that's available on our planet. It therefore cannot represent any of our arable land. So you can set this aside. Next, you'll have the 1/4 which remains. This represents our total land. Cut this into 2 pieces. At this point, it helps to hold the apple that you have for reference. Hold up this 1 piece. Ask students what fraction of the apple this represents. This represents 1/8. And this 1/8 represents our inhospitable land. In other words, land in which humans cannot live. This includes tundra, desert, and other regions. You can set this aside because we can't use it for farming. You now have 1/8 left. Cut this 1/8 into 4 pieces. Remember that this represents how much land we actually can live on. These 3 pieces are 3 30-seconds, each piece being 1/4 of that original 1/8. You can then tell students that this represents how much of our land is hospitable or non-arable. In other words, how much we've used for development for cities and settlements, and also some soil that we cannot use for farming, either because it's too rocky, steep, too geographically inconvenient, or perhaps has already been degraded with farming practices. You can set that aside because we can't use it for farming. We now only have 1 30-second remaining. This is how much of our total earth we can use for farming. It helps to also show students the earth once more. Next, cut a tiny piece of the peel off of that 1 30-second. This represents our topsoil. It's important to remind students that topsoil is the nutrient-rich soil that we use to grow our crops. It's being degraded at 10 times the rate it should be in order to use it for sustainable farming practices. You can then set this piece aside. Now that students have seen the demonstration, it's a good idea to have them engage in some problem-based research or extension activities. The problem-based research could be around other ways in which we imperil our resources. In addition, you can have them research ways in which we can improve our farming practices so they're more sustainable, including things like crop rotation. This is Earth, the apple of our eye. Thank you so much for watching. If you have more questions, you can go to www.populationeducation.org. Thanks.
All right, so let me head back. As we all know, Zoom has a lot of clicking to it. Okay. All right, so we're back in my PowerPoint. Let's head out. Okay, so post-demonstration discussion questions are available in the lesson plan along with, expected answers or and the like. So such questions include: what benefits are there from the habitable land not currently used for agriculture? What examples of this can you see in your own community? What are some ways we can protect our current agricultural land to make sure that we do not need to expand agricultural land into wild areas while still feeding a growing population? So you could at this point get into this, this idea about carrying capacity very easily. All right, and then part 2 could include, if you wanted to, you could head into this direction of having students read a Nat Geo article. It's titled, "Do We Treat Our Soil Like Dirt?" And you could click on it right now if you wanted to. What's interesting about Nat Geo, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, is that the reading is leveled by Newsela or News ELA, however you refer to it. It's not by Lexile rating with Nat Geo, though. It's by grade level. So it's a little bit different, but nonetheless, it's the same. It's the same idea that everyone in your class would read the same article, but once you create an account, you could have certain individuals read at a level that accommodates them best. And through this article, you could ask students to identify, after reading this article, have students identify threats to soil health, and they would find that it's deforestation, over farming, population growth, etc. And or in small groups, you could have them research one of those particular threats in more detail and propose a possible solution. So I thought we'd stop for a minute and talk about this particular lesson. And what do you think a challenge you might encounter while demonstrating this lesson with your students? What do you think might be an issue? Anybody have any thoughts about that? Do you see this as a possibility for your own classroom? Does anybody want to chime in? Okay. All right, Beth, what do you think about this lesson? Maybe I could ask you to engage in a little bit of a conversation. How do you think it might affect students' thinking, or what challenge might you have?
So I love the use of the apples to show them the size, essentially. That's, it's hard to picture just talking about it. So that would be my favorite part. I would see that as, I'd see that useful for all ages for sure. Obviously we're adults here, and it definitely just puts it in perspective for you.
Mhm.
It would be very good. Let me think what, I'm the researching.
Mhm.
The
Yeah, I like the
topsoil.
I like the research too. Yeah.
We have some
Mhm.
great questions in the chat.
Oh, great. Okay. I didn't realize. Okay.
So the first one, it says, this sounds like a great lesson for the Pinelands area. And then someone says, if someone has problems with reading retention, they may need hands-on learning to better absorb the information. A comment from Tom Shepard is, how would you debate the climate change is opening the tundra and Tioga as a new farmland?
What a great question. A+, Tom Shepard. Great question. So much of what is happening is new, literally new frontier for our brains to consider. Great idea. Great question. I don't have a great answer. Great question though. Yes.
Rachel expands on our comment about this being a great lesson for the Pinelands by saying, especially when paired with the usable water resources.
Mhm.
Then Philip Falcone says, maybe you could drill down on the meaning of arable. And I agree, because I heard that term used and wondered exactly what was meant by that.
Mhm.
And then Rachel again says, usable water resources lessons for
Mhm.
usable water resources. So
Yeah,
great comments.
absolutely. Really great. Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off, Allison.
That's okay.
Yeah, really great thoughts and questions. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to take a closer look at the lesson plan, which has material in it, content in it for the teacher, has resources in it for the teacher to see whether or not it could fit, or whether or not you could use parts of it and extend into an area that's better fitting for your own class. Yeah, terrific. Very good. Thank you. All right, let's head to the next, which is lesson number 2 for today. Again, my goal for today is to simply bring some of the lessons from this terrific database to your attention. So this is called World of Difference. If you would like to follow along or download, please go to populationeducation.org, and I simply put in the keywords world of difference. So how, excuse me, how this lesson works: in pairs or small groups, students compare a temperate forest biodiversity to that of a tropical rainforest and explore the impacts that humans can have on biodiversity. Classroom connections, again, include science connections, that is, include developing and using models, interpreting and analyzing and interpreting data. I like this a lot. Engaging in argument from evidence-based argumentation, I think, is a real art that we perhaps haven't. I know for myself, I teach at the college level. I don't see a lot of great arguments, meaning steeped in evidence. I see people persuasively trying to convince, but not necessarily argumentatively trying to convince based on evidence. So I do see that as something that as an education community that we could all get better at. I know I'm doing my share with my college students to do that. Okay, so if you have downloaded it, this is what it looks like. Gives you some facts and information, talking about habit destruction, has students calculating probabilities with your facilitation of it. And I'm going to leave again and share this video. Again, it's roughly 3 to 5 minutes. Okay, are we good, Beth? World of Difference in front of you? Okay, great. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Carol, here to share with you the Population Education Lesson Plan, World of Difference. a middle school lesson plan focusing on biodiversity. Tropical forests are some of the most biodiverse places on the planet. Many are located in areas that are experiencing high population growth rates. In World of Difference, students work in small groups and first use probabilities to compare and contrast biodiversity in a temperate forest with a tropical forest. Then, students will assess how human population growth impacts temperate and tropical forests differently. Science and math are strongly at play in this lesson, but there is a bit of social studies, geography really, as well. For the activity, each small group of students will need a copy of the student worksheet, the provided forest counting grid, a dice, and 2 baggies of beans or colorful beads, one representing the temperate forest and the other the tropical forest. We give you instructions for preparing these baggies right in the lesson plan. Each different color bead represents a different species, and each individual bead itself represents one individual of that species. Let's begin. The first thing your students will do is set up their 2 forests, as instructed on the student worksheet. I already went ahead and set up my forest using the outlined parameters. Well, almost, but now it's done. Part 1 of the worksheet has students look at the biodiversity of each forest. In the temperate forest, the acres are all similar. They all have 2 species. But in the tropical forest, there's more variation between the acres, and some acres may have up to 7 species, while there are some species that only reside in one particular acre, like the purple bead that represents the gorilla, or the yellow beads that represent the butterflies. Now the worksheet challenges students to determine the probability that the population of each species in each forest would change if you cleared an acre. For example, in the temperate forest with the red bead, the oak trees, there is a 6 out of 6 chance that the population would change if an acre was cleared, because oak trees are in every acre. No matter which of the 6 acres you clear, the population is impacted. In the tropical forest, let's look at the green bead, the forest green snake. The snake is in 4 of the 6 acres, so there is a 4 out of 6, or 2 out of 3, chance that the population of snakes would change if a random acre was cleared. But this was just thinking about a population changing. Now think about extinction. What is the probability that any species will become extinct if 1 acre of temperate forest is cleared? Well, it's 0 out of 6, because every species is in every acre. But what is the probability that any species will become extinct if 1 acre of tropical forest is cleared? There is a 2 out of 6 chance. There are 2 acres with unique species, the purple bead representing the gorilla, and again those yellow beads representing the butterflies. So if either of those acres were cleared, those species would be totally gone. They would be extinct. Now students are going to bring population into their exploration
Oops.
of biodiversity using a dice. As you might remember from the beginning of this video, tropical forests are located in some of the areas on the Earth that are experiencing the highest rates of population growth. Uganda, in Central Africa, has tropical forests and a population growth rate of 3.3%. The United States, which contains temperate forests, has a population growth rate of 0.8%. This means Uganda's growth rate is about 4 times as fast as that of the United States. So students will roll a die, and if they roll a 1, they clear an acre of temperate forest. But if they roll a 2, 3, 4, or 5, they clear an acre of tropical forest. If they roll a 6, it doesn't count towards either forest or count as a roll, and they should simply roll again. So let's try it out and see what happens. The first thing we'll do is roll the die, and we rolled a 2, which means that we clear 1 acre of tropical forest. So we'll roll the die again, and I rolled a 4, which again means we clear an acre of tropical forest. And we continue rolling. I rolled another 2. We clear another acre of tropical forest. Keep in mind, it's only if you roll a 1 that your students would clear an acre of temperate forest. And if they roll a 6, they simply re-roll and start again. We provide questions to help you lead a discussion with students about temperate and tropical forest biodiversity and what happened in their individual simulations, but also about the larger meaning of forest loss and ultimately biodiversity loss. In the end, human activity impacted both forests. They both lost individuals, but it was only in the tropical forest that some species were rare to begin with, so the cutting had a more significant impact on biodiversity. If you're teaching in an NGSS state, you might also challenge the students to evaluate this simulation as a model and consider in what ways it served as a strong model and in what ways it was limited. So this lesson is World of Difference and is written, again, for middle school grades. If you're interested in this lesson, but teaching grades 4 or 5, I'd recommend you check out our lesson, World of Difference, Madagascar. It's a similar setup, but there are fewer species, simplified probabilities, and it's more aligned with elementary content and skill levels. And that's all, folks. For more wonderful lessons from population education, please visit us online at populationeducation.org.
All right. Whoops. Lots of clicking. All right. So that's World of Difference. And in the lesson plan, as written, we see that we could use a variety of beans and seeds, if that's what you have available to you. And or you could use, as Carol showed us, the colored beads. So there's some options. So I just wanted to make mention of that as you're reading the lesson plan. They are using the agricultural products. All right, so in the first part of that lesson, you're simply trying to teach students probability to compare these two different environments. And she's using some type of color coding. Gorilla is purple, meaning one purple bead. Butterfly is yellow in different, actually in all, yeah, of the acreage. And then some discussion questions, again, that are built into the lesson plan, along with answers or expected answers such as what basic observations can be made about the temperate forest biodiversity and the tropical forest diversity based on this model. What are some advantages to using this model to explore diversity? What are some limitations of this model to have students think a little bit more critically about this particular lesson? So again, just to remind us, it's 4 times the rate, so 4 possibilities compared to the number 1, and if it's a 6, that they would roll again. So you have to get the multiplication table of your 2 environments going here. And you could ask a whole series of questions, the probability of forest change on temperate, on your first roll, on your second roll. So this definitely has some math connections in terms of statistics and probability. And so I ask this question to all of you from a pedagogical point of view. What would be one way to modify this lesson for students with unique learning needs? How do you see yourself using this? If you do see yourself using it, how might you have to adapt for the students either you've had in the past or maybe the students that you have currently? What might be something you need to do? Excuse me.
Feel free to drop your answers in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand to speak, or just unmute yourself.
Yeah, does anybody have any suggestions or ideas, or would this work in your class? Yeah, cut out pictures. That's a great idea. Instead of dots could be fun. Yeah, I think students would have a really good time with that, perusing through magazines or online. I think I would have a cheat sheet for some basic probabilities available. Yeah, since they might have missed some things going virtual for a good part of the year. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Use local animals to make more of a personal connection if possible. Yeah, all wonderful ideas. Yes, thanks for participating. Yeah, wonderful.
Tom also just mentioned set up 6 containers that represent the 6 acres and have them toss a beanbag for which acre in each forest to be removed.
Ah, so totally
active.
random chance. Yeah, great idea. Love it. Very good. Up and out of your seats, right? For sure. Okay, and then the last that I wanted to share with you today, the lesson is called Pop Ecology Files. I think this one's actually really interesting, but you have to have a graph intensive idea and interpretation in terms of what you want to, what kind of outcomes you want to evoke from students. So in this, students graph and interpret growth curves for 6 mystery species and humans. So again, if you want to play along and take a look at the lesson itself in its textual format, populationeducation.org, keywords that I put in were pop ecology, and up it came. All right, so classroom connections to practices and ecosystem concepts. So practices, again, developing and using models, analyzing and interpreting data, constructing explanations, and engaging in argument from evidence. Ecosystem concepts, carrying capacity, predator and prey relationships, I think is really, you could really talk about that in great depth during or after this lesson. Resource use and impact, impact of scarcity, humans and animals subject to ecosystem constraints. So this is what the lesson plan looks like, just to ensure you're with the right one. And again, I'm going to leave and show a video, the last video of the day. All right, here we go.
Hi, I'm Kate, and I'm here to take you through one of my favorite activities called Pop Ecology Files. In this lesson, students graph 6 sets of population data and use clues to match completed graphs to the correct mystery species. Students will be able to create and analyze graphs of population changes over time, use evidence to support a claim identifying a mystery species, and compare human population growth patterns to those of other species. This lesson is for the middle school classroom, but it could certainly be adapted and used in a high school setting as well. The subjects are math, life science, environmental science, and earth science. To start, the lesson guides your students through the process of graphing the human population growth curve over time. Next, you provide students with a story that gives them some frameworks for the graphing they're about to do. The idea behind the story is that your student's aunt is a very well-renowned naturalist, and she has gathered data on 6 different species in the field. However, she lost the key, happens to the best of us, and she is now unable to know which data set goes with which species. You have to help her figure out the mystery. So we provide students with a list of the 6 species that she studied, and a little bit of context about each of them. For example, for the cerulean warbler, it says this tiny migratory forest bird may soon be added to the endangered species list, and it was studied in central Maryland over several years. To figure out the mystery, students have to divide and conquer. So split your class up into 6 different groups, and each group should have a worksheet with a data set on it. The worksheet guides students a little bit as they do the process of setting up and starting their graph. It asks them things like what they're putting on the y-axis, what's going on the x-axis, and how they should choose and fill in their scale. Once all the graphing is complete, students will need to decide which species matches with each data set and graph using their evidence. They can do a gallery walk to make sure they get a chance to see every single data set graphed before making their decisions. If anyone is stuck, here's a few hints that could help them out. One is looking at the scale and the length of time on the x-axis. Is it measured in years, hours, days? Another thing that could help is the total number of individuals in a species. For example, in some cases, we're looking at millions, whereas in other cases, we might only be looking at 10 or 20. Think about if there are any relationships between any of these graphs, and if there then might be relationships between some of the species involved. And finally, students should be looking at the trends overall in each graph, as well as patterns of growth and decline over time. So let's take a look at graph number 1. As you can see, this is a species without a ton of change over the years that it was studied. It's probably a fairly slow-growing species. This one best matches with the bristlecone pine tree based on its description. Moving on to data set 2, students will usually notice that there's a relationship between graph number 2 and graph number 6. When number 2 is high, 6 is low, and vice versa. Students will usually recognize that one of these must be the rabbit and one of these must be the red fox population. However, the more difficult part is deciding which one is the prey and which one is the predator. The trick is to look at the overall numbers on the y-axis. You're always going to have higher populations of your prey animal than of your predator animal in an ecosystem. So number 2 has to be the fox because its total population numbers are always lower than number 6, which is the rabbit. Taking a look at graph number 3, this one shows rapid exponential growth, and then it experiences a crash. This one matches with bacteria X population 1, which was not given any new nutrients and completely used up its nutrients or resources before crashing. Number 4, we see a downward trend line, and we also see a zigzagging up and down over time. This one represents the cerulean warbler. It's going down over time, which is mentioned in the description as it being added to the endangered species list, and that zigzagging effect is actually due to its status as a migratory bird. Because it's in different places at different points in the year, their population is going to be much lower when they've already migrated away. And graph number 5 is bacteria X again, but this time it's our second population. We see that rapid exponential growth, but then it levels off and plateaus as new nutrients were added to the test tube, so the bacteria were able to sustain that steady population over time. And number 6, we already went through as the rabbit, which has that predator-prey relationship with the fox. The discussion questions go a little bit more in depth into the life science aspects of this lesson. You can also connect any of these graphs back to the human population growth curve that students created at the beginning of the lesson. That was Pop Ecology Files. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. For more lessons like this one, go to www.populationeducation.org.
Okay, we'll stop sharing this and then head back one last time. Whoops. Okay, so I think what you could do is to easily get into a discussion about the J curve. I think that's really important for students to understand, which of course is rapid population density of an organism rapidly climbs, increases rapidly, and then the population faces mass mortality. So at the end of a breeding season, for example, tapers off, mosquitoes, exacerbate during the hot rainy season, and then disappear, right? Disappear, mass mortality. Okay, so we have our friendly Aunt Denise shown here, who's lost the key. The raw data was separated from the species names and characteristics, as my friend Kate just explained. So we are responsible then, students are responsible then for graphing the population data for each organism. I think the lesson plan is well done. They have to read. Yeah, students have to read carefully. the length and location of the study. So we notice here's a keyword, several weeks versus several years. This is also several weeks. Okay, so that is what the hints that Kate told us about. Here is an example of one of the worksheets. So here's the data set over here, dates and the population itself. And so each species has its own worksheet. And here is what the graphs would look like for each of these unknown, mystery species. So what I really like about this is it shows students through their own work how different graphs can look, and then teach us to derive insight from the data as it's plotted. From this visual, derive insight. So what could we say about data set number 3, right? That looks like a J curve to me. Rapid incline, rapid decline. Right, so whatever that species is in data 3 is fast to grow, fast to, fast to extinctness. Okay. Then what we would have, perhaps you could give them the sheet one more time and have them match up based on their the chart of species, background, length, and location, along with the data sets that they created. You could give them these data sets right here to ensure that what they have plotted is what they came up with. What was plotted is accurate, is what I'm trying to convey here, for self-correction. I like that idea. And then the answer key is found in the lesson plan as well. So we could have some assessment questions. Again, these are found in the lesson. What population showed seasonal fluctuations? What caused the populations to shrink and grow? How are the populations of rabbits and foxes related to get into that discussion about prey and predators? Okay, so let's, if we could, talk about it for a couple of minutes here. We have a little bit of time, I believe. Yeah. How do you think students would respond to participating in this lesson in the classroom?
Good. Put your ideas in the chat or just unmute yourself. I was going to say, Nancy, I think I would do this with groups. I might be a little difficult on your own, but in groups or pairs at least, so that they can bounce ideas off each other and build from it.
Wonderful idea. I like it. Plus more fun,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rachel said she had great luck with students in small groups working on these sorts of activities. Yeah, that's
Wonderful.
Completely agree, Rachel.
Yeah, great. Yep. I love the discussion that could ensue. It can't be that one. Why not? Because that's years instead of days or weeks. Yeah, I like it.
Definitely.
We help each other learn and grow.
Laura said, sounds like a fun activity. Maybe change the bristlecone pine to a local tree. So
great idea. Very good. Yeah, you just have to do a little bit of research to get the data. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Anything else?
I think that's all. I'm not seeing anything coming through. Oh, here's one more. Rachel also said, I think I might have the fox and rabbit ones be able to overlay as a demonstration to show the relationship.
Good idea. Yeah, I like that idea a lot. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you for that. Thanks for sharing. Very good. All right. And so where to find today's resources? Again, I showed this at the beginning, learn.populationeducation.org, PP22S. And then here are some digital tools. If you are, teaching more online or have this hybrid situation, the Population Education Organization has really worked hard over the last 2 years, as we all have as educators, no doubt, to try to bring, our face-to-face pedagogical tools to the virtual world. So I suggest checking that out. If you have to register, so be it. Nothing is done with this organization. They do not sell names. They do not sell lists. They are in operation for as long as they have been, based on private donors. Don Henley from the Eagles was at one time, I'm not sure anymore, in the last couple of years anyway, the pandemic has changed so much, but he has typically been a really large funder of this organization to raise awareness, drive insight, and have us think more about our, more about our behaviors as humans and toward the environment. So that's really it. So if you want to take a screenshot of that slide, if you're interested, or Beth or Allison, if you could put that in the chat, or I think this is being recorded, so you could head back and review it one more time if you wanted to.
Yes, I put them all in the chat so you can click easily on them.
Great. Thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Yep. And so here's some other, again, my name is Nancy Sardone. I do work at Georgiaport University in the teacher education program, but today I am a volunteer trainer for population education. I really believe strongly in the people and the message that they're trying to deliver. And they have all types of social platforms over on the left-hand side. All right. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate your time and effort. Yeah. And thank you to this organization. I think you're doing great work as well, bringing lots of awareness of about things in our great state. So thank you. Thank you, ladies. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much to our presenter, Nancy. We appreciate your time here today and express our gratitude for the wonderful work you're doing. Just a few reminders before we close out this session. I put in our chat an evaluation link. If you could please use that. Again, please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can see these and other presentations that you might not have been able to see live. Also, thanks again to our conference sponsors, PSE&G, New Jersey Natural Gas, and our anonymous donor, and to BASF and the Grounds for Sculpture for supporting our field experiences. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Nancy, thank you so much.
Yes, take care. Thank you, ladies. Appreciate your time and energy. Bye-bye now.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.